Alrighty, folks. If you're watching live, we are sitting here at TrumanLakeFishingIntel.com. We're at the monthly guide dinner. I got David Ryan, Hunter Bowling, Jeff Faulkenberry, and Richard Bowling. And we're getting ready to do our monthly guide dinner podcast. We were sitting here at Nini's, so the first thing I just wanted to say was thank you to David and Gina Townsend. They are sponsoring our guide dinners and have the restaurant here, Nini's Italian and Catering, here in Warsaw, Missouri. It was fantastic.
Great.
Had a great dinner. So they're right here. They do a ton of catering too. That's a big part of their business, so you can reach out to them. You'll find their information on our website at TrumanLakeFishingIntel.com. So be sure to show them your support, especially if you're coming up from the Lake of the Ozarks area, coming up to Fish Truman. It's right on your way, right here in Warsaw. So we appreciate that tremendously, and we appreciate them. So without further ado, we wanted to get started into our monthly dinner here. So who we have? We have about as good a group of guys as you could possibly want for Truman Lake, starting with David Ryan of Dave's Custom Baits. He's an accomplished tournament angler, and I've gotten to see firsthand how his balsa baits have produced. They got a new Mahoney HQ Lake record off of it last night.
That's
so,
right.
Pretty awesome. We got Hunter Bowling, the young up-and-comer, and he's been fishing tournaments for 6-7 years, having tremendous success fishing both crappie and bass tournaments, and he helps his dad Richard out with some guide trips as well. And then you have the big dog right here, Jeff Faulkenberry of Endless Season Guide Service on Truman Lake. If you've seen anything about Truman Lake, I guarantee you've seen Jeff Faulkenberry. He does crappie trips, catfish trips, white bass, but he also does waterfowl in the fall. And you're probably going to see us talk a little hunting at times on this old monthly dinner podcast. And then last but certainly not least, Richard Bowling, who's been guiding since the early 90s.
Yep.
And
he's like the godfather.
Yeah, you feel like it. Absolutely. So Richard Bowling's Guide Service. If you've been following TrumanLakeFishingIntel.com, you saw that I got to shoot some videos with him. He was kind enough to take me out, and we just freaking slammed crappie using Garmin Live Scope, and super excited to be chatting to these guys tonight. We're going to be probably doing about a 45-minute to an hour-long video, just chatting all things Truman. We're going to recap just kind of how the fishing was in August, and then move into what to expect here for the month of September and further along into the fall, and then just a few other various topics, just the lake level, how that rises and falls, how you adjust your fishing tactics, some of the safety factors that come along with these fluctuating lake levels. So a lot of really cool topics that are going to be available exclusively at TrumanLakeFishingIntel.com. So be sure to check out the website, become a member, because all of this will be available to members there, TrumanLakeFishingIntel.com. So thanks guys for watching, and to catch up for more on this, visit the Facebook page, head on over to the website. We'll catch you guys in the next video. Okay, so we're done with the live video, so wanted to just get right into it, and let's talk a little fishing. Hunter, I want to start with you, because you and I've been wanting to catch up with you on some of your tournament angling here the last couple weeks. You were in the Joe Bass tournament today, which had 103 boats. So wanted to just see what your experience was, what your plan of attack was, and kind of what you heard other guys were doing, and kind of go from there. So why don't you fill us in a little bit?
Today we fished the Osage arm of the lake. We fished with square-billed crankbait, actually Dave's here.
Yep.
We fished secondary points and main lake points, just anywhere we could see one, have one boat on it, and just whine and whine all day long. That's all we could do.
And they did get a check on that crankbait.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Thanks, Dave.
Absolutely, I love to hear that. I love to hear that. That's awesome.
So you guys had 5 fish.
Yep.
What weight did you guys come in
We
at?
had 1636, I think.
And you guys were, was it 10th or
20th?
20th? Okay.
Yep. We probably boated over 40 bass today.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it was all primarily on.
Every one of them.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome.
It was fun.
So I think the winning weight was what, 20.7 something?
Yep.
So think about that. 20.7 something was first.
Mm-hmm.
What was your weight? 16?
Yeah. 36.
Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you finished 20th?
Yep.
Not much.
Look at all that.
Yeah.
That is such a small margin
Mm-hmm.
for each place, and Wow, is Truman Lake thriving or
Yeah.
what?
It's coming back.
One big fish away.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one kicker. Yeah, I mean, a
Absolutely.
big kicker. With
Yeah.
it.
We just couldn't find him.
Yeah. So
You had a 5-pounder though,
We
right?
did have 5 pounders, yeah.
Hmm.
so here over the last couple weeks, that's been the same pattern that you've been.
For us, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So you also competed in the crappie tournament
Yeah.
last weekend.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
We ended up in 8th place in that one. We fished way up the Grand Arm and 6 foot or less. We fished a lot of our fish 3 foot of water. Fished a little hair jig, 1/32 to 1/16 ounce hair jig with a 1/4 ounce weight above it.
Okay. Fantastic. Now you had 7 fish for 11 something,
65, I think.
which in years past, that's
That's
With
dominant.
180.
yeah, yeah. You know, do you recall what the top weight was?
It was right at 13 pounds, 12.90.
Wow.
12.90.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
For
impressive.
right now, that's a pretty good weight.
Is that on 7?
Seven
Is that
crappie.
7 crappie.
And
Wow.
10 years ago, it took 9.50 to win.
Well, yeah.
That's what it took.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Lake's fishing stronger, numbers are great, and of course electronics.
Yeah, that plays
Yep.
the biggest part.
So you're a Garmin LiveScope guy?
Gotta be now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You gotta be.
So, Richard, when you and I were out the other day, we were talking about just some of the things with fish behavior that you've never been able to see before with Garmin LiveScope. I was hoping maybe you could elaborate on that with just the way maybe fish chase it down a little more than we previously thought. Chase
Even
it
up.
up.
They
And-
chase it up, they chase it down, and I think you got to see as well. You know, we pitched them fish, you know, some of them 15 foot out, 20 feet out, they would chase that bait down.
Mm,
Before, I never thought that a fish would, or a crappie would chase the bait down. Now, then you pitch to a fish, if you drop it too quick, they're going down with it, if they want to eat.
mhm.
The other thing, I guess, is the open water fish, and they're not all like, you know, we all spider rig. You catch your first fish at 10 foot, so you set all your spider rigging poles at 10 foot.
Mhm.
Covering ground, you always got limits. But now that when you're on these flats like we are right now, there might be a fish at 2 foot, the next one at 10 foot.
Mhm.
So they're not all the same depths. So I guess it showed me that different depths, cover water, there's a lot of fish in open water that
Mhm.
never thought it'd be like that. And so,
So does that mean that on those flats, that once you find a big one, all the big ones aren't in that same depth range?
no.
They're,
Absolutely not.
okay,
And you might catch a great old big, you know, 1.5 pound fish
Right.
for Truman,
right?
2 foot on the surface, and go 30 yards, and then a great big one stuck beside a tree 10 foot deep, same size
Okay,
fish.
okay.
They're not doing the same thing. I mean,
That's
they're-
interesting. I mean, for me, it's like for a bass guy, you know, once you get locked in on something, okay,
pattern.
this is the pattern.
Yeah.
This is what they're doing. You know, you try to reproduce that all day, but that's, you know, that all of a sudden makes me go, okay, are bass the same?
I guarantee
Yeah,
the bass
I
are the
guarantee
same.
it's-
Are the-
yeah.
So,
As electronics evolve, you're going to see the same thing. People are going to notice the same thing in bass because, like you said, you establish a pattern and then you fish that pattern all day. Well, those fish you caught just happened to be on that pattern, but there was a lot of other fish
I was
that
gonna
maybe
say,
weren't on
yeah,
that pattern.
that
Might
were,
feel a
that
little
were on that
something
same
different.
flat,
Yeah.
that were in a different depth zone.
Yep.
And
Yep.
you know, and by you getting locked in on that one zone,
Oh yeah.
you're fishing
You're
over
doing the
the
same
others.
thing the whole
Right,
day.
right.
Me and Jeff, you know, we've spider rigged for years. You know, him and I, years ago, him, his dad and myself, we went in, we found a fish at, I think, 14 foot. Jeff sat back the boat, me and his dad was swinging him around to him.
They wouldn't even look at me.
No,
I just unhook a fish, drop it in a live well. I'm in the back of his Ranger. I just drop it in a live well, hook a minnow on. They just set it on their shoulder like this. They wouldn't even turn around and look at me.
but what I'm saying is, we set them all at 14 feet.
Right.
How many fish did we leave up here?
Well,
How many
yeah.
did we leave down
Yeah,
there? A bunch
100%.
of them, I guarantee you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the spider rigging's coming down, winding down, the live scoping's coming to the,
Is
It is.
just
Yeah.
going up, up.
Mine's a little different. I use Lowrance Live Sight, which isn't quite as detailed. It's not near as detailed as the Garmin Live Scope yet, but I've used it enough that I've learned it.
Sure.
You know, I've learned to use what I've got, and what it's done is answered questions for me. So like when we would dip trees for years, you know, you drop in a tree 10, 12 foot deep, whatever,
Sure.
and you kind of slowly start raising the rod tip because they wanted that bait moving. You
Right,
get past them, their
right.
eyes are on top of their head, blah, blah, blah. Now we're watching these fish where you're dropping down in the middle of them, they won't hit it, nothing. You start raising it up, one pulls away, boom, you catch that fish. So it answered that question of why, that, you know, because you cut that one away from everybody else and
Right.
then you got him caught, you know.
Awesome.
It just answers a lot of questions behavior wise. And then sometimes you pull up 8 foot of water, there'd be 7 or 8 little fish stuck down here to the bottom. You pull up there and you drop down in them and they go, whoo,
Yep.
gone.
They'll just,
Yeah,
Leave,
Yeah.
don't wanna eat.
yeah, they just gone.
okay.
But even with your ranch, you can see what side of the tree they're on.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can see how deep they are.
Yeah.
You just can't see how they're reacting to that bait, like what the garment does.
Right,
Okay.
That's
yeah.
what happens. But it's still good. It's
Oh
a
yeah,
great
no,
tool.
it's a big help, yeah.
Do they change colors on the Garmin whenever they, like, versus when you first see them versus them biting it? Do they, they don't? Okay,
Looks
okay.
like it. I got mine, I cranked mine up to 80%
Mhm.
by gain, which it looks like a ball of fire. My
Okay.
sinker that I use is a 3/8 ounce. It looks like a ball of fire falling with a minnow. And when they come hit it, it looks the same color from where they leave to come and get it, same color.
Leaves like a little vapor trail.
It
Yeah,
does,
yeah.
does it? And so
Yeah.
you see them come up and get it.
Yep.
Man, that's awesome.
It's the
stuff.
bubbles off of that fish.
Uh,
Like if you pull up one thing I've noticed, you pull up on a tree, you know, this time of year especially, there'd be a stump under the water and you just see a whole bunch of bubbles. I mean, you know how the trees in the summertime,
Sure.
whatever reason, the lake turning over and you see all those bubbles. And you can look on that and you can actually see that stuff, and that's kind of that vapor looking stuff, is all those bubbles coming up from around that tree.
But getting back to your question, the biggest thing is with the live scope
Yeah.
and crappie behavior is dropping in on a crappie and you, whoever,
Yeah.
and you can watch it eat that bait and it'll carry it 5 feet sometimes, and as a client you'll never know that fish, you never felt it.
Yeah.
How many fish in our lifetimes
A lot.
has ate a bait that you never knew touched your bait?
A bunch.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
a bunch.
Well, I mean, I got to see it firsthand with you, and you're like, Tyler, set the hook. Set the hook, Tyler. Hey, what are you doing? It's not biting. I can see it's there, but it's not. I don't feel anything.
And that's usually when a client reels it in and there's blood running all the way down the side.
Yep. Yep.
Today I had a trip out, and many times on my trip, I would say, you got him on there, and I don't feel nothing. You're not going to feel it. Set the hook,
Mhm.
and pretty soon you can see the fish are running off. And you can even, if you got your gain right and everything on your garment, you can see that line, the sweep of that line. You can see it leaving.
Mhm.
So they'll have the hook, or once in a while, if you're not paying good attention, they'll grab. Even with my big sinker, it'll drop faster than what my minnow will.
Mhm.
They'll grab that sinker and run off with it.
Oh.
I even went to took the sinker, me and a couple of my clients, we put a hook up in it, and bent it, and we caught a few fish on the sinker.
Interesting.
And then when you drop down, it would tangle up, so then
Yeah.
we took a little tag line and put off of it,
Mhm.
and tied a little hair on a hook, and it worked good too, but still made a mess. So
Yeah.
they will hit the sinker, carry it 5 feet, and just come off.
Mm.
So there's something different every day.
Now see, bass do that on a Carolina rig.
Mm. Yeah.
Because I've been at Sam Rayburn before and threw it out there and it's dragging it. All of a sudden you're like, you got one. You set the hook, you wind it 4 or 5 times, it's gone. And you've got teeth marks
Mhm.
on your sinker.
Yeah.
You never had the bait.
Mhm.
Right.
Catfish do the same thing.
Yeah.
We run that Santee Cooper rig. You can
Yeah.
go to my shop right now and look at all my catfish rods with the bobber in front of the hook.
Mhm.
That orange bobber on there, green or red or black or
Mhm.
whatever color. And look at every one of them, it's all teeth marks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because they'll get that bobber. And we've reeled fish all the way to the side of the
Yeah.
boat. They come off to the side of the boat, hold the bobber in their mouth.
Yeah. I wish I could say that was my excuse when I was out there. I just didn't get the hook set. So had several swim off with it, had them on, and just gone. Just
Right.
out of thin air.
Ah.
Anyway, so we're wrapping up August. It's August 30th. How would you guys rate the month of August in 2020 on the fishing?
Lights out.
Yeah.
Very good. Great.
Crappie. Now catfish has been a little different story.
Catfish sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being honest.
I mean, it's just it's the truth. There's days.
Yeah.
You know, early on, I had a week around the first part of August where I was fortunate, and it just happened like it did, but I had kid trips every day.
Mhm.
I had a Hope Outdoors trip for Randy Thornton. I had MMYO kids out of California. But we hammered them, and we hammered big uns. We done really, really well. And then ever since that week, man, it's just been on a rapid decline. There's a lot I can attribute to it. I think there's a lot.
That's what I was
things
gonna
going on
ask.
with
Tell me why.
that. Well, the water conditions are
Yeah.
kind of unfavorable right now.
Yeah.
For that kind of fishing, for what we do. And typically, you go to another part of the lake and catch them, and you can still find some fish. Don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
But a lot of things changing. I really, honest and truly think we lost a few fish last year due to spillway and the big flood. I think we lost some fish. I think we lost some of our big shad. through the spillway. You know, when you take a lake that's 56,000 acres, bump it up to 210 and cut it in half again through the spillway, there's stuff that goes with it, you know.
That's right.
And so I think we lost a few fish. I think there needs, that's a whole nother discussion, but I think there needs to be some stuff done with limits and methods and things like that. There's parts of the lake that are getting fished, jug fished primarily. I have nothing against jug fishing, my family's jug fishing, but they're getting fished very, very, very hard. Lots of pressure, with lots of hooks and big 10 fish.
What is it? It's like 33 hooks?
33 hooks per person and 10 fish per person. So you and your 2 buddies can get in a boat, take 99 jugs, take 30 fish, and it needs to really be looked at. We have a slot limit on Truman, which, you know, I'm all for conservation, 100%. This is the way I make my living.
Yep.
Right.
There's some stuff, and Chris Brook knows. He's the biologist, a great guy. Chris and I visit often, and it just needs to be looked at. It was supposed to be a 7-year study, and we need to look now, or we're going to have big problems.
Yeah.
As a fisher.
Yeah, and you know, one thing that Cody had been talking about too, with a lot of these jug lines late in the summer, a lot of guys don't check them as often as they need to.
Yeah, if you have a 2-pound weight, you only have to run them every 24 hours. When it's summertime, the thermocline fluctuates a lot, especially at a 704 lake level. And so, you know, a lot of dead fish, lots of dead fish, and fish drug off in the brush and lost. It's just one of those years, man. You know, it's just how it goes, I guess.
Absolutely. So what have you guys been seeing the thermocline at here in the last several weeks in August?
Man, it depends on the water you're on. I was in this real deep stuff down here on the lower lake, you know, where the water was 38 feet. The thermocline was everywhere from 22 to 27. I've been in 22 feet of water, 20 feet of water, and the thermocline still sitting on the bottom. Water Patrol was out scuba diving at Long Shoal the other day. They went straight across from the boat ramp. I got to visit with them for a little while. They were going down, and he said they were in like 38 feet of water. He said at 22 feet with his wrist light, he could still see about 18 inches. When you got to the bottom, he said the sediment was almost 4 foot deep.
Wow.
So he said it was just nothing. Nothing. So it's kind of real weird.
Yeah, and now when you and I were out, it was a lot shallower than that when we were looking at it on your graph.
It was. Whenever we were up there, and I was doing some down imaging and side imaging, I mean, it looked like it was a solid line at almost 15 to 17 foot, and then below it, it was just like a haze. And it's like, there it is, right there. It's like there's not going to be anything below that.
Nothing. Dead zone.
Yeah.
And see, when people have catfish jugs, you know, and they run 14 or 15 feet of line off of them, and those baits are in that thermocline, you know, if those baits blow up, that jug gets to blow and it gets up above and a fish gets on, well then his weight, he's back down in the thermocline, there's no oxygen, he's dead.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Interesting. So, crappie catfish we know have been slow, crappie we know have been lights out. Have you guys, I mean, white bass have been, for the last several weeks, pretty
sure
lights
you
out.
can load the boat.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
I would bet.
if you, for family fishing, kid fishing, anything like that, man, it's hard to beat.
Yeah.
They're everywhere.
Yeah. Now, you guys do some white bass trips in the fall. Are you doing spoons? How do you guys like to target them?
Rooster tail on the bank.
1/4 ounce rooster tail.
Yeah.
Let the
Throw
wind
the
hit the blowing. Yep.
Yeah.
Foot of water.
You let that wind blow on some gravel.
Oh, hard.
Oh.
Woo! The boat will hurt.
Yeah.
Everybody in your boat will have a fish on all the time. You
Yeah.
got a lot of wind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get walleye.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the best part of white bass
Yeah.
fishing.
Yeah.
Like, I go white bass fishing in hopes to catch walleye. White bass are just,
Yeah.
Look at this guy.
Yeah.
Last week,
Yeah.
what's he do? He catches a freaking 3-pound walleye.
Yeah. I told David, I said, man, if I could figure out how to catch walleye consistently on Truman, it might be donezo with every other species.
You did throw it back, didn't you?
Hell no.
He threw it back in his cooler.
Yeah.
One of our buddies, good buddies, Ed Gilbert, he caught a great big walleye today in the tournament.
Oh,
I think
really?
he was on a crankbait. I don't know whether yours or not, but he caught a
Right.
great big huge one, and threw it back.
I
And he
heard
caught
someone
one yesterday too, same size, and kept it.
Wow.
I'll be dang.
Mine was 21.5 incher, the perfect, like 22
Oh.
inches and under is like perfect cleaner size, so there's no way in hell I was talking about
That's a good meal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 meals.
Really good
Absolutely.
eating.
So getting to the bass a little bit,
Yeah.
David, here in the month of August, we've been out a couple of times.
Yeah.
You've had decades of experience on the lake in the month of August. What can you kind of give us kind of a synopsis of the month of August bass fishing and maybe some things to look forward to?
Well, what I saw is the bass are really in good shape.
Mm-hmm.
They really are. We had lots of bites when we were out last, and the further up that we worked in the Big Palmy, the bigger the bites got. And you know, it's been, anytime you can go and you can have 3 5-pound plus fish in a day, you know, in your limit of 5, that's a pretty good day.
That's a
Yeah.
very good day.
I mean, I'm telling you,
Very
3
good.
5-pounders, that's solid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, guys would give anything for that. You know, because once you catch 3 for 5 that weigh 5 apiece, I mean, you're sitting at 15.
Yeah.
All you gotta do is catch 2 3 pounders.
Couple
and you're-
swimmers.
Yeah, 2
Yeah.
3 pounders, you're at 21.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you catch a 3-pounder and a 4.5. It's like, oh shoot, I'm at 22.5. It's like right on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's, if that one doesn't straighten the split ring and pull off, I mean, that's where we were sitting.
Yeah.
I mean, and so, I don't know. I think that it's in really good shape. We didn't get to expose the topwater bite, kind of like I wanted to. I've really done well in late August going into September on topwater. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I've caught some great big giant ones,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I think going forward, what people can look forward to is that as you shed, push further and further shallow on these flats, I mean, those bass are coming.
Mhm.
Those bass are coming. They're going to be right there with their food. You're going to wind that square bill of mine, that black market balsa. You're going to throw a topwater bait. You're going to throw a spinner bait.
Whopper plopper.
I mean, the plopper will get them.
Yeah.
I just like
There's-
saying that.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you know, if you need to flip a little bit, there's arms. The next time we go out, we'll maybe expose that a little bit.
Yeah.
But there's arms of the lake that on these flats I'm talking about, that they've been notorious for getting at the bases of these trees in 3 to 6 foot of water.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you typically catch them with a jig and put them in those roots of those trees, and they're good ones. I
Mhm.
mean, I've got several friends of mine who have won several tournaments throughout the years. You know, when it gets to September, you know, you've got a checklist. It's like, okay, this guy, this guy, this guy. Those are teams that are vying for the win today.
Yeah.
And you know, we just have to be cognizant. And in order to win these events, you just have to be fortunate. You have to catch everything that bites. They get in the boat, and you know,
It's all
you
got to
go from
line
there.
up, man.
It does
It's
have to
gotta
line up, because if you get the bites and you waste them,
Then, yeah, it didn't line up.
yeah,
You know, one of the Truman Lake Fishing Intel fishing report guys, Steve Blake, right over here, he's
Yeah.
been doing some bass fishing.
Yeah.
And he's been talking about that topwater bite
Yeah.
on the whopper plopper
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and a popar.
Yep, the popar, I love
Yeah.
that popar.
he loves
Yeah.
the popar.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, who don't?
Yeah, and he doesn't venture far from Sterrett Creek.
Nah.
He's,
No, he's been catching.
he's kind of a
there's,
homebody.
there's lots of big ones around Sterrett Creek.
So Hunter, David and I did a video here earlier this week about the Grand Arm and the Big Palmy Arm being one of his favorite places to target in the fall for bass. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that, if you've got some other things that you like to look into.
Normally I'm grain guy all
Yeah.
the way, gotta be. But right now with the how the water is on the grain, it's turning over
Mhm.
and it's dirty, it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
So we ventured to the Osage, find a little cleaner water and better water,
Mm-hmm.
and better bite, a lot
Mhm.
better bite.
So when you're throwing that cleaner, so one pattern that we noticed was the big worm doing better in that cleaner water versus the jig. What I mean, you're throwing that crankbait.
Stay
what-
with the crankbait all
Yeah.
day long.
Yeah.
That's all we did.
Okay.
We probably should have changed it up middle of the day, but we stuck with it.
Yeah.
But it's so visual.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always said, if you can see it, they can see it 10 times better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're winding it and you're watching it work, and all of a sudden it's like one gets it right there in front of you, and you're like, oh! And he may have came from 10 or 15 feet away because he sees this shad or he sees this bluegill that's acting crazy coming back to the boat, and he just gets it right in front of you, and it's like, oh! got it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
kind of one of those deals. I
Mhm.
mean, I've had lots of them get it at the boat. And it's a Chinese fire drill when that happens. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I got it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a big one.
Yeah, we had that happen today. I had one come up before it came on top of water. My crankbait is right on top of the boat. And it came up and nosed it, pulled a little bit, right inside of the boat.
No kidding.
Cool stuff.
That's awesome.
It was cool.
It's like the figure 8 for
Yeah.
the.
Right,
For the muskies.
right for the muskies.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's cool.
Your partner like his fishing gloves?
He does. He really likes them. He was talking about them today,
I
actually.
brought some of those for these gorilla grips that
Yeah,
we use.
hell yeah.
I brought some for Mr. David Ryan over there.
Man, that's
So-
awesome because the other day, whenever we were out, you know, and we were catching all those big ones, when I got home, I was like, Candy, look at my hands. And I was like, man, it looked like you had taken a cheese grater to the palms of my hand. And it's like, man, you love that because those are the days you're catching big
Right,
ones.
yeah.
These dudes here, they get sticky, you know. They got fingers in them. They're grippers. These are grippers too, but they got the fingers cut out of them, so they're easy for tying on
Yeah.
and everything else. These right here for fishing are the go-to gloves.
Man,
So-
that's awesome.
Must
So
have.
those are gorilla
Gorilla
grips.
grip.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I don't even have a pair
They
of
also
those.
got face masks.
Yep.
That, you know, the ones
I've been
like we
wearing-
wear, the sun protection.
Yep.
That's awesome.
You can wear them as a balaclava or a hat, a scarf, or whatever.
Yeah.
They're long, but they're thin.
Yeah.
That's the best part about them. Some of the
Yeah.
gators are heavy
Yeah.
materials. These are thin.
So whenever, like Jeff, if I catch a bunch of white bass, will they poke you through
No.
these?
Yeah.
No gill cuts, no plate cuts, no
That's the-
spines.
Man,
no
that's
nothing.
awesome.
So one of my really good buddies, Chris Nelson,
Uh-huh.
down at Stockton, I do a lot of videos with him, helping promote Tandem Fly Outfitters. Got hooked up with Steve Ford at Gorilla Grips,
Yep.
and he has been using them, swears by them. You're using them now, and we did earlier on this August, we were down there on Stockton doing a big white bass trip, and it was every cast, like what you're talking about, just bam, bam, bam for an hour straight. We were wearing those Gorilla. I mean, it is literally night and day. One of our other buddies was not wearing them, and
Oh,
the
yeah.
difference in his hands versus our hands.
Yeah.
I mean, it's seriously night and day.
Oh.
They're awesome.
Richard and I, Richard more than me, we have clients swinging fish in the boat all the time,
Yeah.
you know?
Gotta
And,
catch 'em.
you know, you gotta catch them as they're coming by. You're not always gonna get a thumb in the mouth or whatever.
Yeah.
So you just kind of get a hold of it,
Yeah.
unhook it, throw it in the live well, grab a minnow,
Mhm.
you know, which with any other glove, you can't really hold on to a
Can't
slick
hold
old
on.
minnow.
Yeah.
So you grab a minnow and hook them up and keep them going again, you know, and it's just, in what we do, whether you're tournament fishing, whether you're guiding, whether you're pleasure fishing, whatever, those few seconds of jacking with something
Yeah.
is a big factor at the end of the
Yeah.
day, because you take 60 crappie times 10 or 15 seconds of chasing one around the boat, add all those seconds up, that's a lot of minutes of fishing time.
Well, I mean, even last night as I was fishing our lake on our property,
Yeah.
I didn't have the gloves with me, but with that big old freaking crankbait, a lot of these fish weren't huge in the lake, and
Yeah.
so I'm trying to grip the body of the fish, and,
Mhm.
and then their freaking dorsal fin comes up and gets you just right.
Yeah.
It would have been real nice to have those, but I forgot them in the truck.
And then catfishing, I'm not
Yeah.
a netter.
Yeah.
Of course, we're not fishing in a river system. When we won the big cat tournament down here last year in this
Uh-huh.
river, there was so much current that we had to use a net because you got to fish up to the side of the boat. The current's washing him this way. You can't really get a hold
Yeah.
of them good. But in a lake system, you know, you fight your fish to the boat and you're kind of at the fish's mercy. And we use fish grips or bocas. And on a big catfish, a lot of times you'll get those grips on his jaw, but if he flops, it'll unlock the jaws or bend the jaws. I wear these, the cut proofs.
Mhm.
You get him to the side of the boat with his mouth open, I'll get him over the side.
Yeah.
Because I get him right by the bottom
Yeah.
jaw. I don't like a net because in that net I've seen the circle hook catching the webbing of the net
Mhm.
and the fish flop, pull the hook out, fish is gone.
Uh,
I've seen it all happen. But
Yeah.
I just put on a cut proof gorilla grip and I'll be like, you get him up here, I'll get him in.
yeah. That's
And I
awesome.
just grab him by the jaw and lift him over the side.
Yeah, it's a great tool to the trade, and I mean, especially when you're cleaning fish too.
It's a lifesaver.
Yeah,
Yeah, and sun on the back of your hands.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
you don't got the,
Yeah.
all the crap in the minnow bucket now.
How many years have we had that?
Oh yeah, we'll find out one of these days. But yeah, them right there, they'll keep the sun off the back of your hand. You're gonna have to put lotion on your hand, get it in your minnow bucket.
mm-hmm.
They're handy.
Yeah,
Very handy.
I've been with them for a few months, and Richard has too, and they've been a really useful tool in my
Yeah,
boat.
yeah.
For certain. and even my clients, I have people that won't touch a catfish
Yeah.
or won't hold one for a picture or whatever, but you put a pair of gloves on them, it's a whole different ball of wax.
Right.
Yeah.
They'll wear it up against their shirt.
Yeah.
Totally
Yeah, right.
Like you wouldn't touch it 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, it's an awesome tool, and you know, it started as an automotive glove,
Uh-huh.
and
Yep.
they moved.
Did it
into
really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oil change.
And they
No
they still
kidding.
do that, but they moved into the fishing side. They're working on some hunting gloves
I
as
have
well.
some camouflage ones.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
it just, I mean, gorilla. I mean, you can't appreciate it until you're using it and understand how well it grips.
Yeah.
It's not, because you can go get cheap little gloves at Walmart, and it's
You just have to be careful, like if you go to Google the name.
Yeah.
This is my wife was trying to look up something for Gorilla Grip, and it came up all kinds of weird stuff.
Oh. Well, that's good to know. That's good. I might have to Google it just to see what the hell is going on.
Check that out.
Special kung fu grip.
Yeah.
Goodness
Yep.
gracious.
I think it was the name of an actress.
Yeah. So, we talked about bass coming into September. Is there a certain water temperature or just a date in your experience where it's like, okay, they're in, they're shallow, now's the time? Is that in September? Is it further on into October?
No, it's September,
Yeah.
and there was a rule of thumb that I always had, and it was just me. It wasn't something that I read or somebody told me about. But when the lake from summertime made a 3 to 5 degree drop,
Mm-hmm.
that was the initial push for everything to get shallow. That's what the rule of thumb I always went by. And whether that's we're at 80, and then all of a sudden now in the mornings it's 73 and it warms up to 75, whatever it was, you know, that's what my indicator was, and I immediately catch a ton more
Mhm.
shallow on those flats, on those ditches, on those little timber ditches that run those flats, and any of those places where the wind blows, the shad get, and there's ambush points,
Mhm.
and those bass just light them up. I mean, and you can get in there with that crankbait or spinnerbait or top water and work on them, and there's no doubt. I mean, those days, you know, those days in September that there's not a breath of wind.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, ugh. But the temperature's right. You know, those are the days that you have to throw that jig.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to fish shallow. You have to fish slow in those roots on those trees that I was talking about, and you've got to change it up, because first thing right out of the chute, yeah, you might catch a big one on top water bait, but there's no incentive for that fish to chase because there's no activity. I mean, especially where I just checked my phone. We're at 7:04:65 right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's not going to be any current. Any current we have is wind current.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't have the wind current, yeah, there's not anything to jumpstart that bass to be aggressive and really chase him down, unless, you know, he's here on this stump and, you know, all of a sudden a ball of shad comes right in front of him. Well, at that point in time, yeah, he's going to fire, because it's just like after you've eaten a Thanksgiving meal and you're full and you're in the recliner waiting for the football game to come on, and somebody comes by with a tray of brownies and goes, "Oh, would you like a brownie?" Well, you're like, "Yeah, I'll take a brownie." And that bass is like, I'm full. And it's like all of a sudden, oh, here's the brownie stool. And he swims up and eats the brownie.
Yeah.
But,
What about the ice cream?
oh, the ice cream is always in play. That's right. But, you know, that's what I would look for. I
Yeah.
mean, and I think that those days just get better. I mean, as we work further into September, it's just going to get better.
Mhm.
Now, don't get me wrong. There's still a group of fish that's out. That main lake area that I talked to you about
Mhm.
is that, you know, that Long Shoal down, that Clear Creek Island down in the Big Tebow, that Stara Creek region, you know, all the way over to like the mouth of the Little Pommy. That's all that lower end. I classify all that stuff as lower end.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still fish out. in summertime stuff, and they'll be the ones late that come up. I mean, those main lake fish are the ones that are late to come to the flats and all that. But you know, it just depends on what you like to do. If you're a deep guy, and deep is relative. That's a relative term. I use it loosely, you know, on Truman. You know, 8 to 12, that's deep for me to catch a bass at Truman. Other people are like, no, I can catch them 20 foot deep. Okay, more power to you, because I'm not going to throw out there.
Yeah.
Because the majority of the bass I've ever caught, I mean, in my lifetime of fishing Truman, I don't know if I can count on one hand if I've caught that many that have been deeper than 15, and most of them are 12.
Yeah.
They're not deeper than 12.
Yeah.
And Richard's got a world of experience there. You know, he can tell you, it's like deep is super relative whenever you're talking about Truman, because just over the dam is a whole different world. And as close as these two lakes are, Lake the Ozarks and Truman, they're polar opposites. I mean, those fish will get 35 foot deep down there in a second.
You got to fizz every one you catch.
Yeah.
You know, so
Come up with their eyes bugging out.
So he mentioned just kind of that noticeable water temperature change. What kind of water temperatures are we seeing right now, late August?
These mornings it's 58 degrees and then 102 by noon. That's a pretty big fluctuation.
Yeah.
it's like, we're gonna give you 74 and then you get 83.
Yeah.
It's anywhere from 74, 75 to 79
Okay.
end of the day, so
Yeah.
still pretty warm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
That 50 mark, 50, 55. I love fishing for anything. That
Oh
50 to
my.
55 degree water.
Yeah.
White bass, catfish, crappie, bass.
Yeah.
I mean, 50 is like feed bag mode. Everything's gonna eat at 50.
yeah. So that brings up, because I was going to ask you guys, since we talked about bass in September, you know, what we expected with crappie and catfish moving into September. Is it we talking similar patterns as the bass? What's the thoughts on that?
Now, they'll move shallow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our guide fish, like, you know, and him being a tournament angler, you know, the hunter's as good as anyone at catching shallow crappie, whether live scope or not live scope. And the shallow, I'm talking 2 to 5 feet. You know, you go catch a pile of crappie in 2 to 5 feet. Richard takes a guide trip out. He's not going to go chase 2 to 5 feet because he's looking for 60 fish, or 45 fish, or whatever. You know, so we're going to stay out deeper with more target-rich environments instead of going one tree, catch one, in
Right.
2 to 5 foot.
That's the whole difference between school fishing and single fishing, isn't it? Yeah.
As the water cools off, we're gonna move up. I mean, if you wanna catch a big fish, and several of them throughout the day, you're gonna get up in 5 to, or say 3 to 10 foot water. You know, follow these ditches up, just like Dave's talking with the bass, same kind of thing. But the thing about crappie is you follow that ditch up, and I've done a few, Hunter's done some, you're gonna find stake beds, you're gonna find porcupines, you're gonna find everything. And say this is the last tree on the flat going up a ditch to the bank. That's in 4 foot water. I guarantee you there's a stake bed by it. That stake bed's gonna be sitting there. There's gonna be a fish in that tree. There's gonna be 5 fish in this. So you can pick all these out and catch that one, leave, and come back in 30 minutes, and that's reload. They just keep it coming.
So for those who might not know the vernacular of stake bed, what is that?
That is a pallet bed. It's a
Self-made
pallet,
brush
self-made brush pile. It's a pallet bed, a pallet with 1x1 stakes on it sticking up.
Okay.
You cannot get stuck in it. It's all just sticking up. You can drop in it. You can swim through it. You do not get your jig on in it.
Gotcha.
Makes it easy. It's good. Them fish will sit in there. They'll ambush them baits as they come by. Shad are moving up shallow. Crappie sitting in them. You get a bait by them, and you're going to catch it.
Yeah.
Now, prior to the stake bed stuff, that last tree that happens to be in that ditch, that's a hedge tree, has got a cedar that's upside down tied to it.
That's me right there. I never built a stake bed, but I wired it several times.
The Walmart after Christmas trailer.
Oh, yes.
It's like, it's unbelievable how many bass get right there on that.
Well, the pre-electronics, you know, the guys would. So everybody knew that tree right there, that stump in 5 foot of water holds a big one. On tournament day, everybody knew that stump was going to get hit 10 times. So pre-high-tech electronics, somebody said, well, watch this. I'll go put a stake bed 10 feet away from that tree and pull that big fish over there.
what they would do is like if there's a limb sticking off a hedge like this, that was their marker.
Mm.
You know, and that'd be right. That
Yeah.
was their point. Be right there. You can still to this day go and find them.
Yeah.
But with the live scope, the side scan, the live sight, whatever, you can find every stake bed on the lake. And
You'd
they're
be
gonna have
amazed
a lot
by
of
how
fish.
many there is. on
There's
this
so
lake.
many. There will never be another stake bed put in this lake.
No.
There's
Find
too many
them.
now, and you can find everybody, so you can't hide
And
them.
right now, with this water at the level that it is,
Oh, yeah.
this
It's
is the time
time.
to find them.
I have, in the last week, and you know, I got a new boat, so I don't have a lot of waypoints on these new graphs. I bet I've set on the Osage arm in a 3-mile stretch, I bet I got 50 waypoints
I believe that.
on stuff that I never knew was there.
No kidding. Oh
I'm
my
fishing
goodness.
brush piles I've never fished in my life.
What?
No. I'm just
No
side
kidding.
scanning around and be like, holy crap, look over there. Pause, flag,
Yeah.
and then drive up to it, drop live side, and be like, oh, that thing's loaded.
That's awesome.
Because we can, you know, you're pointing right, you know right where it is. It's
Sure.
so relative. You know, used to we drive by, we side scan. Okay, it's 40
Yeah.
feet over there. We drive over it with 2D, and then you see it on your screen, and then you're
Uh-huh.
trying. You're like, okay, it's got to be behind me.
You
And
got to
any,
throw a marker buoy
and
in.
yeah,
Yes.
so yeah,
Right.
throw a marker buoy out. And so now it's like side scan, drive toward the waypoint, getting close, run up to the trolling motor, throw her down. There's my waypoint. Shine. Yep, there
Oh,
it is.
there it is.
Yeah. And even like the conservation piles, you know, looking for those, you'd see those, and you mark that, and you drive over there, like, well, it's not there. Well, it's 20 feet over that way. You know, on built into your graph, it's
Right.
not quite
No.
right, but
Right.
it'd be, you know, 20 feet that way or somewhere around there. And some of them are gone. You know, some of them conservation piles are gone.
Because the current
Yeah.
from the water
Flood.
getting high and
Yeah,
everything
they
else.
forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About 5 years ago when I got the big pile of the Christmas trees from Walmart here in Warsaw. So me and Hunter and a bunch of us built a bunch of, what we done is took a 5-gallon bucket, put 2 Christmas trees in it. And I thought, you know, we're gonna go sink her own. So I had a bunch of followers there at Buck
Sure.
So we got there's probably 10 on the boat, probably 20 Christmas tree buckets. And we're gonna go sink these things. But we've got bush light involved. So we go dump all these, and the next day we know where there's 2 at. So now that's an Easter egg. We got to figure out where to put these things. Still don't know where they're all at.
That's great.
Goodness.
There's so much stuff, you know,
Yeah.
and with side scan and this new live technology,
Mhm.
it's incredible.
It's changed everything.
It has.
Incredible.
Change everything.
With the new electronics, it truly shows you how many fish is in Truman Lake.
Mhm.
This, I've traveled all over for the Nationals, for crappie masters. Dave has too, Hunter's been some. This to me is the best crappie fishery I've ever been to.
110%.
As far as numbers,
Mhm.
we got a lot of things, we got numbers, we got size.
Mhm.
You can come here, you can pull crankbaits, you can spider rig, you can one pole, you can
Long
cast.
line.
I don't care what you want to do, you can still go out and catch a limit of fish every day.
Yeah.
So this lake is more versatile than any lake I've ever been to.
Yeah.
Any time of year.
Any time of year. And I've been to a lot from Alabama River. I've been everywhere.
Mhm.
And this is the lake.
I would have never thought that because, you know, traditionally April, into March, April, 1st of May, crappie time.
Mhm.
Everybody knows.
Yeah.
We get calls 10 times a day.
All right.
What do you got in April? We want to come when the crappie's on. Dude, the crappie's on all the time.
Yeah.
We just spoke to them yesterday.
You're like, no, I want to
Yeah.
come when they're on the black gravel in the Grand.
Yeah. I mean, that's just. Yeah, but literally, like the jig under a cork deal, you can catch them under a cork on a jig right now, too.
Like, oh, yes.
100%.
With the live scope, what this would really work, and I've only done it one time, it's a little bit more work. If you could have your casting pole with a slip cork on it, and you see that fish out there at 20 feet, and it's 8 foot deep, pull that thing up to the 8 feet,
Right.
fire to it, I guarantee you can wear them out.
No kidding.
No, it's be like spring fishing, but you might set it 8 foot for that fish,
Uh-huh.
and the next one, though, there's 2 foot,
Then
so
you
you
have to-
pull it back down. It would work great.
Wow.
Because you'd stay in that strike zone the whole time. You can just jack William till
And you're not up on him.
No.
You're 20 feet
Right,
away.
right. You can stay away from because
It-
on there you can see how far away he is, can't you?
Because a lot of them 2-foot fish, if you try to drive up to him without, you know, he's using a 13-footer. I use a 10-footer, but you drive up to him, I watch them all the time. Shoo!
Or someone steps in the boat wrong.
Or, yeah,
sideways.
slam a live well lid or a minute bucket lid.
Yeah.
Zoom!
Yep.
Gone.
Amazing how finicky they are. So you said something interesting about pulling cranks because we don't. Everyone's long pulling and single pull. What do you guys know about the crankbait and trolling and?
And that I don't do much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very
And I was gonna say,
Yeah.
you push them, don't you?
No, you pull.
No,
You pull them.
It's
Well, you
more
can do
effective.
both.
You can do
both. You
I was
do
gonna
both,
say,
yeah.
I pushed them one time in Grenada, Mississippi.
uh-huh.
I'll never do it again. I broke a pole, lost a
gosh.
pole. I'm done. I had 2 crankbaits on one and you know, I set it up different than some people probably do. I don't know. I didn't Google. I don't know. And I put a big cigarette and pushed them real fast.
Right.
Trying to get a reaction back. And I had the first pole went, and the second pole hung up, and just the eye broke off. I said, I'm done with this.
Yeah, because you're going forward.
Yeah,
It's
you're
like,
pushing
uh-oh.
forward. Same year, Tommy Scarless won it pulling crankbaits out the back.
With planer boards.
With planer boards.
No kidding.
Spooky Fish was pushing to the outside,
Right?
and he'd catch them on that outside, only on the planer board crankbaits.
Yep.
No
Couldn't catch
kidding.
them pulling.
Couldn't.
But
But they
they
had to
had
be
to
on the
push.
planer board.
Yeah, pulling or pushing wouldn't work. Had to have the planer boards. Get away from
Wow.
And it can be done,
Yeah.
but it's kind of like spider rigging or dipping or casting or whatever. It's a method you choose. We could go pull crankbaits every day and catch crappie. I guarantee you 100%.
Mhm.
But it's not our style.
Mhm.
It's like watching paint dry.
Yeah.
And we can catch them faster doing what we're doing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Is there particular areas of the lake that lend themselves better to pulling crankbaits?
clean water, damn air.
Yeah.
down
Water,
there.
like
No
Dave
trees.
said,
No trees, yeah.
No trees.
Wide open flats with some humps on it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Long shoal area is great for it.
Yeah.
Very good
Turpin Creek.
Yeah.
And the fun part about it is the plethora of fish you could catch.
Uh-huh.
Because when you're pulling crankbaits, you're going to catch crappie, you're going
Right.
to catch white bass, you're going to catch walleye, you're going to catch
Oh,
bass,
yeah.
you're going to catch catfish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah. So one of the things that's been mentioned several times tonight is the lake level. The current lake level, we're 704.5, or about a 1.5 feet low. However, last year we had the all-time record high.
One extreme to the other.
So Truman is just one of those lakes that is prone to being impacted by heavy rains
Right.
pretty significantly. So
Flood control.
I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on how your tactics change when it is sky high, and maybe some of your tips. We were talking about this ahead of time with what people should be doing right now as the water is low. So anyway, Jeff, let's start with like the water being low. Guys, safety wise, when the water comes back up, they need to be doing some things.
Right. Safety wise, people say, oh, all the stumps in Truman Lake. Well, hey, it's a blessing. Now you can see them all.
Right.
At 707, that's a bad level
Right.
for a person that doesn't know the lake.
Right.
Because all those stumps are just under the water.
Mhm.
Right now, all those stumps are showing. So now what you worry about is humps and dry land on the middle of these flats.
Mhm.
Because you might be cruising what you think is a wide open flat that actually is 6 foot deep, and there's 3 humps across it that are ankle deep.
Mhm.
So you see people all the time.
Mhm.
So right now is a good time to go out and lay yourself some trails. Run the channel from Sparrowfoot down. They say, everybody says, well, I don't like to go down through there because of that railroad tracks that runs through there. Well, it doesn't run all the way through there. People do it every day. Don't be intimidated. Just take time, go out just like your graph. You want to learn your graph? Leave your rods at home.
Yeah.
Go out, play with your graph. Take time, go out, lay yourself some trails, drive all the way down to Long Shoal, have lunch, turn around and drive that trail all the way back. And the next time you get in your boat, you'll feel confident running from Sparrowfoot to Hay Creek, or Hay Creek to Long Shoal, or Long Shoal up to Berry Bend, or whatever. Take time to go out and make yourself those marks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at what's showing now.
Yeah, setting up waypoints like we were doing on some of those stumps that have broken off and
Yeah.
are just barely under the water. Now you can
Yeah.
just see them.
So I've got some hazard waypoints that I've set when the lake's been low, like 7 or 8 years ago, and I went and I've marked some things. I can still run where I want to run and how I usually run, and I know where the dangers are. But the other day when we were fishing, I was like, Tyler, I need to idle over here. This is the biggest tree that's out here, and it marks one side of the river channel. And it's always been a tall tree. Well, about that far above the water line, you can see it's ringed, and the top of it's getting ready to break off. I was like, that's going to break off right there, and when the lake's at 707 or 708, you'll never see it. And you've got to have that waypoint right there in order to be your marker for the channel and things like that. Because and Jeff, you and I have talked about this before. People are down here, they're pulling their kids on the tube, and they go over these places. They can't see anything when the water's at 708 or 709. If you come back down here right now with the lake at 704, 65, you will see things that will absolutely scare you to death because you're thinking,
gonna freak
oh
out.
my gosh, I thought that that was clear, and there's a whole stop field out there that you've pulled your kids over on a tube. It's like, so right now is the perfect time to come down to actually get a feel for the lay of the lake and what it's out there, because in our last roundtable discussion, it's like Jeff and I were like, yeah, back when we learned the lake, all those stobs that are broken off were trees that were real tall, and it looks to me like the lake that I learned 30 years ago.
And a lot of people think the trees just break off, and some of them do. But a lot of it depends on if the lake freezes and at what level it freezes at.
Yeah.
So if the lake's at 709.50 and the lake freezes solid on the upper end, well, as it begins to thaw and that ice begins to shift, it shears off those trees, and then down she goes.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna start wrapping our conversation up, but just going off of this theme, I kind of wanted to just talk about, when we do get some of that high water, how your fishing tactics change. I mean, at 7:39, you're still doing guide trips. So well, maybe not as many, and you're being a little more cautious, but as it gets up higher, maybe not all-time record level, how do your tactics change a little bit on the crappie?
The tactics are the same, but these fish, what they do, they're still on the flats, but they're in flooded willows.
Yeah.
So it makes it a pain in the butt. For a guide in a willow tree to pull in on a guide trip, to dip a hook and a sinker in a willow is a nightmare. And that's where the fish all go.
Yeah.
I don't care, the upper grand, all the way down to Bucksaw, there's willows everywhere. And if you look, if that water's come up and if we're 10 foot higher than the pool, so 716, you look for the willows. I don't care if you're on the flat, in a creek, it's going to have fish. It draws all the little bugs, crappie come in there, and I guided on one willow last year when I moved back to Truman. I was on Lake the Ozarks for a while playing. Moved back to Truman, I fished one willow for probably 10 days in a row, one willow tree. I could pull up to that one willow on a point, and it had a little buckbrush behind it. That willow, I could go right around it, and it had hundreds of fish in it. And never left it.
Wow.
Not for 10 days I didn't leave it. Now the water started dropping, they pulled out, got back on the trees. So high water, look for your willows. They're going to be scattered. If they're not in them willows, they're going to be very scattered. So you're going to have to use your graphs a lot. Look for the buckbrush, button trees, or whatever they call them, little buttons on them. They'll get it in, but the willow trees are the best.
Yeah, interesting. Now, does that for bass? What's
Well, as a rule of thumb, at 7:09, the first button bushes or buckbrush get in the water, and that's also, whenever it's coming down, a number that I always kept in mind, because I knew at that level where the last bushes were that would come out of the water, and they're real close to long shoal. But I would say without a doubt, you're still talking about, okay, we're in September. Okay, September at 7:16 or 7:20. You still want to look for flat stuff, because those shad just get on that stuff. So the bait fish gets on that flat stuff, and buckbrush typically is out of play. It's the willows, just like what Richard said. It's the willows. Those great big ones will get in the willows, and in the bass, at least for my take on it, are a little bit different, because all willows aren't created equal. You can look at a willow tree and be like, man, that is the perfect willow tree. But if the bottom topography isn't right, they won't be there. They won't be on it. They will be away from it. I mean, you might be able to catch something else in it, a catfish or whatever, but I'm telling you, and then all of a sudden you find a willow tree that's on the right bottom, you'll catch 4 or 5 bass out of that willow tree. I mean, there's no doubt. I've done it before.
Yeah.
But those are the things that are different, and sometimes it's not a willow tree. Sometimes you have to get back here behind everything that's flooded to find a hard target. And let's say that there's oak trees, there's big hardwoods back there. Sometimes they're in those hardwoods that are behind everything. I mean, it truly is a trial and error, experimentation, and you just have to keep checking and graphing and looking and trying different things until you find it. But you're not gonna, typically for me this time of year, if the water's high, even though a bluff bank, you'll talk to some people, oh, you're gonna fish a bluff bank because they can't go anywhere. They've got a backstop and they're just gonna move up and down. Well, that's fine and dandy, but if their food's not there, they're not gonna be there. So
I know for me too, in high water, typically when the water's high, we're running water at the dam, so there's current. So then I start current fishing,
Well,
whether I'm catfishing or I'm crappie fishing or whatever. So,
Yeah.
Typically when the water's high, they're going to be running water at the dam. It's going to put current in the lake. Going to fish some main channel swings, with structure on the edge of the main channel where them fish are setting up in the current. My catfish, I'm going to probably run way up the river and stuff I shouldn't be in. But it all depends on that current situation too.
they do that, and those boilovers, those runouts that have the river channel that touch them, and it creates that feeding area. Just like what we talk about. So that water that boils over, they're all up there. Yeah, don't make the cut through.
Yeah.
And on the crappie side of it, like Jeff was talking, say this is the tree, the current's coming this way. Every one of them crappie, the good crappie, is going to be on the upper side,
Yeah.
facing into the current.
Absolutely.
A lot of guys think they're going to be back here ambushing the bait when it comes right. They're going to be right up here.
Those little ones are back there.
Oh yeah, good ones are
Those
right here.
big ones are up there.
Put on a heavier weight, drop it down right in front of that tree, and I promise you catch it.
Yeah.
Get out a little ways and let that current pull it toward that tree. Don't drop in the tree and let it pull it away.
No,
Right.
don't
Doesn't
put it
make
back
sense.
here.
You want to
Not
put it in
gonna
front
catch
of the tree and let it come back.
Now, when you say heavier weight, because you're saying you're doing 3/8 right now. What?
Yep,
what?
if there's a lot of current, I go to a half ounce.
Okay.
And I pitched a half ounce today, so I'm on my trip. Even no current, I just wanted to pitch out there, get down to them quick, because I was really wanting to chase the bait, so
Yeah.
I went to a bigger weight today.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I thought that was a great conversation, guys. Appreciate you being down here. Again, thank you so much to David and Gina Townsend at Nini's.
Absolutely.
Great food. Good.
It is
Excellent
awesome.
food.
Be sure to pay him a visit down here in Warsaw, Missouri. Again, David Ryan, Dave's Custom Baits, Hunter Bowling, the young up-and-comer tournament extraordinaire, Jeff Faulkenberry, Endless Season Guide Service, fishing all year long, waterfowl in the fall, and then Richard Bowling Guide Service. You can get a hold of Richard and Hunter both through Richard Bowling Guide Service. And then I'm Tyler Mahoney. I'm just, the guy that's here interviewing them. They're the experts, and super excited to have them involved in Truman Lake Fishing Intel.com. Be sure to share with your friends and family. Let them know what we're doing, the type of information that we're putting out to help more people find more fish on Truman Lake, have more success, have more, make more memories on the water. If you do have any questions at all or want to see any topics of discussion in the future, be sure to reach out to us. You could reach out to each one of us individually on our own social media website, give us a call. But you can, Truman Lake Fishing Intel on Facebook is widely available, so comment anytime, and you can contact us through the website as well.
So a lot of good information, and we were talking about one of what I consider a legend earlier, who we lost last year, was Marvin Decker. Just a fantastic guy and an excellent bass angler and crappie angler for that matter, but just a legend. But later on, this kind of information, guys like David, Richard, he's already a legend, both of these guys. But later on, hopefully many years from now, these are going to be the guys that people talk about.
Right.
Remember this or remember that. And so the information that you get right here, it's exclusive stuff.
Yeah.
It is. This is, and I've said this when we've been out. It's like you can watch different things and see different YouTube clips or whatever, and guys are just kind of, you leave it going. That's kind of generalities. Whenever you tune into this, I mean, you're talking to the guys who will give you the meat and potatoes. This is how it's done. These are the baits that they're biting, and this is the experience that we have. I mean, we've all been doing it for all of our lives.
Long time.
And
there's going to be folks that are like, man, they're giving away all the secrets. They're telling all the good stuff, all the good stuff.
But we've always done that.
We've always done that.
Yeah.
It's our
I don't
jobs.
hide nothing. I might tell you not the exact spot I'm catching them,
Yeah.
but I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm doing to catch
Right.
them.
Well, and like you said, you go and watch YouTube and you get to see, how things are done, which is fine. It's a starting point, but we're getting to see how things are done on
Right
Truman
here.
Lake.
Yes.
This is the most pertinent information you could possibly get access to. So we appreciate all you guys that are already members, and we'd love it if you could share and let folks know what we're doing so we can keep this thing going in the long term. We're super excited to keep doing this for you every month, and we'll look forward to catching you guys on the next one. Thanks a bunch.